I play guitar in Lungs, Grogus, and Tulip. I play bass in Obsolete, and I do vocals in Wanderer. In college, I was playing a lot of R&B, funk music, and jazz, and started playing hardcore. Near the end of college, I got invited to play in Lungs, which is a post-metal doom band, and been doing that ever since, and kind of throughout the years meeting more people in the metal scene, that kind of became my home, and started making bands with friends, Tulip being the most recent one. That's all just trying to be as weird as we possibly can. Yeah, because I was going to like punk shows as a kid. I went to a high school in Edina, which for anyone who's kind of weird is not great environment. So I was immediately kind of thrust into the punk scene, so I knew those people at a very young age. Well, I mean, like growing up in more of like a white suburban neighborhood and then moving more to like Minneapolis proper is just different because living in the city is a bit different. Mm-hmm. But it's all the same. It's Minnesota. Yeah. Winter and summer. It's definitely really vibrant, and I've been touring since I was a kid too, so I've seen music scenes in other states and countries. And I just, like, even from that, I've been left with more like, I want to live in Minnesota my whole life. Yeah. Because our music scene is so welcoming, and there's so much different stuff. Like, you can do anything you want here and find a scene. Like, it's crazy. Whereas other states, it's kind of like, no, we just play thrash, and that's it. Yeah. I'm like, that's fine, but I like being somewhere where you can do anything. Growing up, there was more of this than there is now, but there was a lot of, like, kind of non-policing happening in the scene where people could just be horrible and nothing would ever happen. Uh-huh. And that was just kind of it. You know, you know about like 2 or 3 dudes that are in popular bands that are like doing horrible things to like women or other people. Oh, really? And no one would do anything. But now in recent years, there's been way more of a push to make people accountable, and that's really great. Yeah. I'd say like the only real negative is I think there's a bit of an age gap and separation in the scene a bit. There's like some older people in their own scene, and then there's like people like late 30s and younger have their own scene, and I think that those two things could meld a little more. Yeah. But I get it, there's just like a generation gap. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, the amount of clubs that have shut down here in the last 2 years that's horrible. Yeah. Triple Rock and Medusa and Big V's and like all these other spots in the Station 4 a few years ago. But, I mean, I'm hopeful. Like, I've seen new places pop up, and, you know, Mortimer's is a new thing, and I love that club. Yeah, I just went there recently, last month, and I was like, wow, this place is pretty cool. Great room, sounds good. It's nice and small, which I like. Yeah. Yeah, I dig it. That's one thing I was going to touch on was some of the venues over here. And, you know, a lot of those venues that have closed down seem to have been real, like, seem to nurture the music scene a bit. Yeah, especially Triple Rock. I mean, Triple Rock being like a metal punk club specifically, so for the music that we make, it was like it was a home. And, you know, nationally renowned acts would come here just to play that. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed since it's shut down, not only did we like lose a venue, but we lost a selling point as Minnesota being a spot to come when you're on tour. Mm-hmm. So I've seen tours that would have come here years ago skipping over Minnesota. Yeah. And like that's a huge bummer. That's more of a bummer than like me losing a venue to play at home, is seeing like my friends' bands from other states totally skip Minnesota. Yeah. It's like, come on, you know you make money, but the good club's gone. Yeah, yeah. So when I was young, it was probably Rush. Was one of the first bands to really like kind of open my mind up to what music can be. What age? What age? I was probably like 13 or 14. Okay. And, you know, I had listened to just kind of whatever and, like, what my dad listens to and, you know, your basic stuff, like Beatles and all that, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, I was really into. But none of it really, like, made me go, wow, until I got into, like, 2112 and Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres and those records. And I'm a bass player primarily. That's what I went to school for, so I fell in love with Geddy Lee and that whole thing. And then later down the line, like, I got way into that kind of music and, like, Mr. Bungle and anything Mike Patton ever did, and just kind of went down the rabbit hole of weird. And then in college, I got tipped off to Meshuggah, and I think since it was in my freshman year of college, I listened to Meshuggah for the first time, and I don't think I've skipped a day since. And I'm 5 years out of college now. I probably listen to a Meshuggah song every day. I grew up in a musical family. My dad is a professional musician in town. That's what he does for a living. Plays guitar and sings and stuff like that. And my stepmom's a singer professionally. It's what she does. And my brother is a drummer, went to school for that. My sister's a singer. So like growing up in that household, music all the time.
That's
it was
awesome.
just like I was given a guitar at age like 8.
Oh,
and it was
wow.
like go, like you gotta do it.
Yeah.
So it was kind of ingrained into me as a kid, and like, I mean, the way I earned my allowance as a kid was roadieing for my dad. I was a little kid carrying around his amps and hooking up all of his gear. So I learned all that stuff really young, and then it just stuck with me. I was like, no, that's what I do. My dad was always learning music and had piano in the house, and they would have band practices in the house. Like all these other like big up musician people in town would come over, like Mary Jane Alm, who's like Minnesota Music Hall of Fame person. More people I can name drop, but like people that started IPR, the Institute of Production and Recording, like would all be in my house all the time. So I like knew all these people. It's inspiring, you know. And they're all like amazing players. So I was just like, I would always just be home. Like, wow. That's when I started to play. I was mainly guitar and piano, and then I was always kind of moderately into those things, and I always wanted to play bass. And I think at 12 I started playing bass, and it was like, I love this. And I didn't touch a guitar for another like 7 years.
Oh, wow.
And I remember when I got asked, I was in school for bass, performance and composition mainly, and I got asked to join Lungs. And my immediate response was, I do not play guitar. And I don't own a guitar. And then they pushed me enough where I ended up, you know, dropping all of my savings on a 412 amp, some pedals, and a guitar. And then that was it. And I was like, oh, I actually love playing guitar.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Sunless is an easy top. I like overly technical music, so they definitely get me going. Recently I've gotten really into Grand Demise of Civilization, which is kind of a death metal-y black metal band. The drums are fast. I like that. Other standouts for me are like Not From Here was really good when they were a thing. It was cello, guitar, and drums. I was really, really into Maith when they were around. Two drummers, flute, metal. Anything progressive that's doing something different, I will jump right into it and love it.
Yeah, Maith is so good.
Yeah. And I mean, I met those dudes, and we went to the same college, and they were a couple years ahead of me. And I remember they were doing a show in one of the dorms, and I didn't know who they were or anything, and I had taken some LSD that night and went downstairs in the dorms.
Perfect.
And saw them playing, and was like, I think I'm going to like this college. And then their bass player, Boone, who was in my band, Grogus, we met that night, and it was like instant best friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we lived together for years, and we still do Grogus together.
I can imagine doing some LSD and listening to fucking Maith.
Yeah, first time dry.
Like,
yeah.
What the hell?
What the hell? Some really memorable ones were I used to play in a band called In Defense. That was like a party thrash band. And when we put out our last record, it was this huge to-do at Triple Rock. It was this sold-out show, and I was getting pizza thrown on me the whole night. And like that was really fun. We all did makeup, and like that was a really memorable show. Probably another big one was the just because of how great the show was and how poorly everything went after, was when Sunless and Grogus, we were going on a tour together, and we did a kickoff show in Minneapolis, and our second show was in Denver, which is quite the drive.
Yeah.
And it was blizzarding that night, and we did not test pack the van beforehand. So we finished the show, tried to load the van, it does not fit, like none of our stuff fits in there, and we're panicking because we have to start driving now to get to Denver. And Jeff Moan, who's the drummer of No Funeral, walks outside, looks at us and goes, "You need a trailer?" We said, "Yep." He says, "Follow me." We drove to the middle of a cemetery at 3 a.m. to pick up this dude's trailer, and then went on our way. And we got to the show, so we left Minnesota at 3 a.m. and got to Denver right before we had to play.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like what time was that? Like 8 or some shit?
Yeah, 8. It was nonstop driving.
Oh my god.
So that was like a great horrible memory. Like I'll never forget that. And we spun out too on the road because it was all ice.
Wow.
I think it was at 6, 7 in the morning we spun out. If that didn't happen, that tour would have been canceled.
Yeah.
We would have had to cancel 2 weeks of shows.
Wow.
And that was awful. And I mean, other standout shows that weren't in town were like touring in Japan for a few weeks and playing music out there was special. They loved it. I mean, they had no idea what we were saying, but they absolutely loved the party vibe. I remember one of the shows in Tokyo, I was playing and I looked up and the whole front of the crowd had formed a giant human pyramid and they're all just headbanging in a human pyramid. I was like, I've never seen that before, but fuck yeah, like I'm down.
Pyramid, like
Yeah.
like vertical or how?
Like it was like 7 people on their hands and knees down and then another row on top and another row on top and they're all just on their hands and knees on top of each other headbanging.
Holy shit.
And then eventually one person like ran through them and knocked them all over and they all started moshing.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And like, you know, shows in Japan, people are like playing Red Rover in the mosh pit, and like it's way different.
Yeah.
Way more of like a fun vibe, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a fun one actually. We between me and Boone, our bass player, and Jonas, our drummer, we've recorded with Adam Tucker at Signature Tone countless times. And we love him to death and we'll use him forever, but we really wanted a change of pace with this record and to go somewhere different. So we actually drove out to Chicago and recorded at Night Mother and Company, which is run by the 2 guitarists of Nerves, which was a local band in town for a while. And we've been friends with those guys for a long time, and we just sounded fun. And we drove out there, recorded the whole album in a day, and then spent the second day recording one 10-minute track that's on the record. That's kind of a weird soundscape thing. Mm-hmm. But that recording process was really fun. We've only ever tracked live, just all of us playing the songs in a room. And this one, we did it all to a click, part by part, way more precise. Mm-hmm. And we actually loved the way that turned out. We're like, that's the way now.
Wow.
Yeah.
With a click and all that?
Yeah. Do beat mapping, do drums first, then bass, then guitars, then vocals. More than anything, it was making the click tracks that took so long. Because Grogus, that we focus a lot on tempo changes and time signature changes. And inside a riff, it'll change time signature 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And mapping that out to a click can be gruesome.
Yeah.
There's many late nights in my apartment listening to the clicks over and over, like, is that right? Or that was a huge thing for Jonas, our drummer, because he's a guitar player primarily. He went to school for guitar playing, and he actually started playing drums for this band.
Okay.
And the difference of when we started the band as a joke, we were just kind of playing around, and now is so astronomical. Mm-hmm. And like him being able to track to nothing, just a click, no scratch tracks, no nothing, just clicking and him playing drums, the whole record. That was insane to watch. I was like, you're not a drummer, and you're nailing this.
Wow.
And I have a great picture somewhere of him after spending I think it was 3 or 4 hours tracking drums, and he finished, and he immediately just drank a half a bottle of whiskey. He's just so hyper focused. It's like, you're done, bud. You're done. So Grogus kind of started as a joke band, and we were writing songs about magic cards and stuff like that just to be funny. And we still kind of do that, but the idea has become more conceptual that we aren't Grogus. Grogus is this interdimensional space being that we worship, and it's more like we're writing a comic than anything, because it's like the adventures of Grogus and the different worlds and monsters they fight. And yeah, it's not a lot of metaphor. It's really just us having fun with writing about dumb stuff.
Yeah.
But we do kind of inflect our own emotions onto the music, so it still gets a lot of heart to it.
Yeah.
But this record in particular is about, there's a lot of stuff going on with it. There's songs about specifically weird, Lovecraftian monsters that you can't imagine, and if you saw them, you'd go insane. And the title of the record is called 4 Kings, about 4 abyssal, dead kings that live in darkness, which is, if you know anything, it's from Dark Souls, which we're all big fans of. A lot of the conceptual stuff of that band was born out of when we lived together and smoked way more weed than we do now. But yeah, it's more, that band more than anything for us is experimentation in rhythm. Yeah. And we're trying to trip each other up with doing weird rhythm stuff. And then song concepts come way later. It's usually near the end of recording that we're like, this is what this song is about. In Tulip, we do a thing a lot of times where the drums are written first, and then we write riffs on top of drum parts.
Oh, really?
Which is a totally other world of writing music. Yeah, and especially the way Alec, our drummer, writes. His drum parts aren't drum beats; they're more like riffs. There's an odd expression to them.
Yeah.
That it's way easy to be like, okay, I can hear some sort of jung jung dun dun over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the record Tulip just released last year, the song L'Ascent was a drum part first, and that's probably my favorite song on that record. Whereas every other song, I think I had written the riffs first, and then everyone wrote on top of them.
Yeah.
But that one was just like so cool to me. And there's a lot of really odd rhythmic changes.
Yeah.
That, like, when you assess what it actually is, it makes no sense. But in just listening to it, it's like the slammiest thing ever to me.
Yeah.
Grogus is really fun in that way, though, because it's a three-piece, and myself and the bass player are the most opinionated. And we will full-on get in screaming matches with each other over riffs. Nothing that we'd ever break up our friendship over.
Yeah.
But our drummer, no, he's the least opinionated, but he is our mediator.
Yeah.
And when Boone and I start getting mad at each other, he'll let it happen for a little bit, and then he'll jump in, and then usually when that happens, that's when our best riffs come out.
Yeah.
It's like if Boone and I get in a good fight, and then Jonas clears it up, well, something awesome will happen. So it's funny because we'll be fighting, and you can see it in our eyes that we know that this is going to lead to something good, so we keep fighting. And luckily we've been playing music together for so long that we know how to navigate it with each other, and we'll know when to say, let's leave this for next time, or let's actually push through this, or something like that. When to compromise, when to put it away.
Yeah.
I mean, we've full on trashed, I think, like 2 hours of music in our time from that, but that's fine, because it didn't make it. That's a thing I think a lot of musicians stay away from, that they should get comfortable with, is throwing away their own stuff. Saying when this is just not up to par with the rest of the stuff I make. And it happens all the time. But too many people just like put everything out, which is fine in its own right. Having a huge catalog is cool, but I like when people are a little more discerning with what they put out. That was a huge one with the new Lungs record that we're about to put out. It's only 5 songs, but figuring out how to make that album flow right was really hard, because the new writing style in Lungs is way more esoteric and weird and like kind of through composed, instead of way back where it'd be like we'd write more like pop music. It'd be like verse chorus, bridge chorus. And now it's all odd song structure, and getting those to flow right in a record is tough, but we eventually got there.
Yeah.
It was once we found out that it was going to be on vinyl, and we did the track order based on sides of a record, totally changed how we thought of it. My music is more for me than anything else. It's my form of therapy or whatever, even though I do see therapists as well. Everyone should.
Yeah.
But it is more for me than anything else, and it's being able to just express myself in a certain way. I don't care if I ever get paid or not. When I do, that's great. It's helpful for making the bands more self-sustained. If we don't have to put money into it, that's great. But I never expect more than that. Just making a band self-sustainable is like a goal for me, and anything beyond that is like a gift.
Yeah.
It's like I'm just expressing myself, or we're expressing ourselves in the way we want, and we feel good about it, and that's all I can hope for. Like in any of my bands, if we write that riff or that transition that makes us all go, ooh, like that's the feeling I'm chasing. Just that. Like when you write that super cool thing, that feeling when you write something so heavy it makes you laugh. I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel like playing specifically metal and that kind of stuff, like metal, not as, a whole genre, but encapsulating all of what metal is there's a lot of freedom there. Whereas a lot of genres of music, you have to follow a lot of conventions.
Yeah.
And that's, you could say that about metal too, but I've always had the feeling that there's a deep-seated freedom in playing metal where you can really do whatever you want and experiment with sounds and rhythmic textures that you wouldn't find in other types of music.
Yeah.
Or you would, but in just such odd types of music. Like the drummer of Grogus and I spent all of college studying West African music. And that was a huge part of how we write Grogus music, like those style of rhythms and polymeters and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And like, you don't see that as much in other types of music, or like drawing from weird things and creating just this amalgam of music. And it's like, and I like overwhelming music. I don't really often listen to chill music or music that's meant to make you feel relaxed or background stuff. I like things that grab your attention and demand that you actively listen to it. Like that's always been the kind of thing that really grabs me. Like, especially with classic, like more avant-garde classical music, like what I studied in college. That's a huge part of how I write metal too. Is just thinking about that style. And I don't know, it's like that. I just like the freedom of being able to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like, no, we're playing a country song, so it has to go into this next kind of part because that's how that music works.
Yeah.
It's harder to get away with being weird. In the past year, I've gotten extremely obsessed with a band called Igor, with 3 R's, Igorrr. It's a solo musician from France who uses a team of musicians to record the music and play it. But it's indescribable music. It's like electronic, black metal, death, operatic, neoclassical. It's just all over the board. I mean, I hear a track with accordion and blast beats and screaming happening on it. I'm in.